From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast, a weekly show for basketball gamers and hardcore hoopheads. Andrew with you once again, joined as always by my co-host Derek, aka D4-3. Derek, NBA 2K27 is almost upon us. We've got the big infodump last week. We have some thoughts on it, so please, tip us off.
Yeah, our main topic today is centered around early official gameplay footage of NBA 2K27. However, we wanted to kick off the show discussing NBA Live Mobile, which will be shutting down. So this is the announcement on their site and in the game. It states, "Dear players, we've made the decision to sunset EA Sports NBA Live Mobile on October 27th, 2026. We know this will be disappointing to our community, and we're incredibly grateful to everyone who has played and supported NBA Live Mobile over the years." And then it talks about how until October 27th, 2026, you can continue playing the game and using any remaining in-game currency. So EA Sports Basketball is officially dead with this announcement, Andrew. No more EA Sports Basketball at all. I didn't enjoy NBA Live Mobile. We talked about it on a prior show. I dabbled in it just to see what it was all about. The gameplay overall, to me, just kind of sucked. It was very limited. It was very outdated. The graphics weren't inspiring. It was heavy into microtransactions. If you wanted to really do anything in that game, from my experience, you had to pony up, put more money into the game in order to get different players, in order to upgrade. So I don't think this game was a net positive anyway with people. So I don't think it's a major loss. But once again, it does mean that EA Sports is officially out of the basketball gaming business at this time.
And I felt for a long time that NBA Live Mobile was kind of spitting on the name of what was once a great series. I know it hasn't been the premium basketball series for decades now. Well over a decade, certainly. So that may sound strange to say. But of course, I have a lot of affection, a lot of nostalgia for the NBA Live brand. So seeing it reduced to just the mobile version, full of microtransactions, as you said, it was kind of disappointing to see it reduced to that. And like you said, not very fun. I gave it a go as well. Not impressed. Definitely not my thing. Certainly with the microtransactions making it even worse. But I've already felt that the door has been slammed shut on NBA Live the way they've just refused to come back after cancelling NBA Live 20. For a long time now, I've not been anywhere near as optimistic as you've been about the game coming back. And with them sunsetting NBA Live Mobile, it just feels like an even more definitive end to the brand.
Yeah, I'll say again, I don't think it's a loss. The way I experienced that game and what I know about it, I don't think it's a loss that NBA Live Mobile is going away.
No.
However,
it's more what it means, isn't it? Yeah.
It's more what it means, yeah. I'll say that most of my optimism about NBA Live coming back at some point, the console versions and maybe a PC version and whatnot, had to do with they can't be that stupid to not try, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked about that on past shows. There's only one player in this space. It's the perfect opportunity for somebody else to come in and challenge them and try to take some of that market share. Right. There's fatigue with this series. And I've been talking about it for years. And like I said, my optimism is just more centered around, you got to be kidding me, right? How is there not a company in here looking to challenge in this space and give people a different type of experience from a gameplay, graphics, presentation perspective, mode perspective? And, EA Sports was the most equipped to do it. We talked about that many times.
Sure.
If there was anybody that had the relationships, if the team, the assets, etc., it was going to be EA Sports. So, yeah, I'm not surprised NBA Live Mobile is going away. But I am surprised that they haven't tried to jump in again since NBA Live 19. And like I said, wasted opportunity, and it's too bad for potential consumers.
Yeah, we are the ones that are suffering from that lack of competition, the lack of alternatives in the space. Not everybody happy with NBA 2K, myself included, obviously. So, very disappointing. On top of the nostalgia, the affection for the brand at its height. Because people do forget, people do try to pretend that NBA Live wasn't the brand leader at one point, doing things that other basketball games simply weren't. being innovative, obviously. A lot of things beginning with NBA Live, NBA 2K coming along and doing them better, and that's one of the chief reasons why NBA 2K did pull ahead, did become the brand leader. But NBA Live in its day, yeah, definitely had some great games. And to have no competition, we've talked so many times, as you said, how that has affected us as consumers, how it's affected even NBA 2K and what they can get away with their microtransactions, with their gameplay decisions. Not having that alternative has hurt us so much. So it is sad to see the NBA Live brand go away completely. Like you say, NBA Live Mobile itself, not a great loss. This is what it means for NBA Live, what it means for basketball gamers, really. And you look at what happened with the planned return with an EA Sports college basketball game. As soon as 2K decided to throw their hat into the ring, start making arrangements with schools, an exclusive deal was off the table, EA backed off. They didn't want to have that competition. Now there's talk that 2027 might bring that college basketball game from 2K, that new standalone college basketball game from 2K Sports, from Visual Concepts.
But it's worth noting that they're going to have a lot less teams than what EA was going to put forward. EA was trying to get all Division I men's and women's teams in their game. And from what we know of what 2K Sports is doing with the college basketball series that they're intending on putting out there are going to be a lot of schools missing. And we talked about the feedback from people when this was announced, when EA's proposal was accepted. The excitement was centered around, hey, we're getting a full-fledged college basketball game.
That's
we're
right.
We're going to be able to create that Cinderella story. We're going to be able to take a bottom school to the top. We're going to be able to do realistic recruiting. We're going to be able to do this and that. And then when EA Sports backed out because they got bullied out, pushed out, to be honest with you, it seems like, from 2K Sports, then people were monumentally disappointed. The response to what 2K announced they were looking to do with college basketball, originally adding it only to my team, right? 2 seasons and whatnot, a limited number of teams, etc. And then what their future plans were, right? DLC. And then what their future plans for, the majority of the feedback related to that was negative. Right? People were pissed about it. So I don't know how well this is going to be received if 2K creates a standalone basketball game and there's a limited number of teams and whatnot. But, I'll be honest with you. It's too bad that 2K had the influence to sway these other schools to work with them. Number one. Number two, it's a damn shame that EA backed off just because, and from what it sounds like, just because they weren't able to get an exclusive license. That is a damn shame, because let's say Duke, okay? Let's say Duke agreed, hey, we're going to go with 2K. We're going to allow them to put us in the game. I didn't see anything about a school that agreed to be in 2K saying, no, we wouldn't also be in EA's game.
Yeah.
Right? Related to college basketball. So I think that is ridiculous that EA backed out, and I think it's a damn shame. And in my opinion, they are equally to blame as 2K for the fallout. That's my opinion.
Oh, I agree. I agree that 2K did bully them to some extent. As soon as I saw that post on social media, they jumped on that and tried to drum up support for a potential game that they would make. That obviously took some wind out of EA's sails. People who do prefer 2K are obviously more excited about that. Although, to your point, a lot of people not so excited either. They want an alternative. They want something different. Even if they do have that lack of trust in EA, they still want someone else to give it a go. And like you said, EA, the best equipped to make a basketball video game, apart from 2K, with their history, the assets, the connections, etc. So I do think 2K were a bit underhanded there, bullying, as you said, but also, like you said, EA kind of wimping out, not wanting the smoke, not wanting competition. They wanted to run unopposed. And I see their point, because that would give them a tremendous advantage. They don't have to compete with 2K. That has been a problem for NBA Live, obviously, having that direct competition, but it is kind of cowardly, absolutely. So yeah, I'm with you. Blame on both sides.
So when I look at how easy they folded, like how quick they were to back out, I don't know if they were ever truly committed to this. I have a right to question that as a potential consumer. And at the end of the day, I also think them backing out is kind of cowardly, right? So anybody who thinks that EA Sports is not to blame for that situation, they definitely have to take some of it.
Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, nba-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at nba-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
So let's get to NBA 2K27 gameplay. So Community Day took place. I believe there was around 100 creators that attended. And the early gameplay footage doesn't impress me. I see just a ton of 2K26 in here. Actually, I see a ton of 2K20. We talk about the gameplay kind of being stale as it relates to, player movement and, the graphics and the player body models and all of that stuff. And honestly, I look at this preview season and it's all just kind of run together since 2K20 for the most part. And I've stopped being impressed for a while. And I think you're in the same boat. Like I'm looking at this gameplay and I'm looking at the feature announcements and all of that stuff, and I just don't think you're going to spend time with this game because I think I know you pretty well by now. I do want to point out that this gimmick of having people at Community Day start out by sitting down and then jump up real fast and then get in front of the camera and say, this is the greatest NBA 2K game ever. You got to go out and buy this right now. This gimmick is ridiculous and cringeworthy, and it's got to stop. I have multiple videos bookmarked on Twitter of creators jumping up from a chair and getting right in the camera and just trying to pump up and promote this game. And unfortunately, that's what it's come to, right? Kind of this shameless, choreographed, scripted promotion. And I hope that, people are using their brains when they see stuff like this and, using their best judgment when they make decisions on purchasing things because, it's kind of lame.
It does feel very phony, very contrived. Absolutely. And you know how I feel about that, having done community events for NBA Live back in the day. Always feeling like I was putting my reputation, my credibility on the line. If people were disappointed by the game, we'd often get flack. Those of us who attended the community events. Why didn't you point this out? Why didn't you tell them to fix this? And of course we did give that kind of feedback. And we did try to be as honest as possible. But there were things that you missed, obviously. And even if you did say, hey, this needs to be fixed, well, either they didn't want to or they couldn't in the time between the community event and the game going gold. So it certainly wasn't our fault. We were trying to be as honest as possible with the developers and with the community. And of course, there is a bit of a game to be played there. But now it seems that the game is really doing stuff like this, doing the contrived, scripted promos, basically like that, to push the game. And it does bother me. People might say, oh, you're salty, you're bitter, whatever. Yeah, it does bother me a bit, Derek, that creators don't seem to be putting their credibility on the line, that they don't lose credibility when they outright shill for these games. And I understand that that's how the game is played these days. You want that access so that your channel can get the perks, can get the footage, that you can have that hands-on experience with the game before it's released. So that you can actually create this content that you are monetizing, that you can have that credibility of being someone that's working with 2K. Times have definitely changed there. I get it. But I still hate it because it doesn't feel like audiences are demanding that credibility, that honesty from creators. And yeah, the times have changed, philosophy has changed with the rise of influencer culture, content creation, etc., but I don't have to like it. And as far as the footage is concerned, like you, I'm not that impressed by it. It does look very much like last year. I know you can't judge gameplay solely on somebody else playing the game, especially if they're not playing it the way you would, especially if they're not playing it well, especially in 5-on-5 gameplay. But yeah, nothing about it has really excited me from what I've seen. So yeah, it hasn't really moved the needle as far as my hype.
Yeah, just remember that when you see this stuff, and I'm talking to our audience, that it's obviously scripted because there's multiple people doing the same thing, jumping up from the chair, getting right in front of the camera, etc. But also know that these people are receiving endless perks, right? They get a lot of stuff to go to community day. They're getting promoted, all of that stuff. There's perks involved as well. So, especially to the younger audience, because I don't think the older audience really falls for this, Andrew, but especially for the younger audience, keep all of that in mind and, do your research, form your own opinions on these games, and don't fall for any of this BS because it's really, really ridiculous.
They're marketing at this point. That's the thing, is that they're marketing for 2K, a form of marketing, which is what our community days were as well, which is why we were striving so hard, to be honest, to be for the community, as much as it was a great opportunity for the NLSC and other, what we now call content creators back in the day, we still wanted to be representing the community, both in the feedback we were giving to the developers and the reports back to our fellow gamers. I'm not going to say that all the content creators are not being honest, or that they aren't giving honest feedback to the developers, but like you say, they're all doing the same promo. It just feels very phony.
In my opinion, the people you should listen to most are the people who do not have skin in the game, right? The people who do not receive perks, the people who are going to be honest about the product no matter what. They're going to show the product for truly what it is. They're going to give you realistic commentary. So, that is just my opinion. And I'm not saying that everybody at the community day is a sellout. I'm not saying that every person at community day is a shill. And I'm not saying that all of them post poor gameplay, etc. But what I'm saying is you should be able to spot the obvious when it comes to the stuff that I mentioned. Anyway, let's get to the gameplay really quick. Early gameplay was shown, new features, gameplay for the most part, as far as player movement, as far as like the way the foot planning looks, as far as the suction, is all this stuff. That all looks the same to me, and I'm not going to know if it feels any different until I get my hands on the sticks. Right. I did pre-order. When this episode releases, it will be on Tuesday, but the game, I'll have the game the following day. So on our next episode, I'll be able to give like true first impressions. I'll also post gameplay on YouTube as well. But outside of that, Andrew, I really don't have that much to say based on the footage that I've seen. They showed new step through and up and under shooting animations, which are basically travels in any other era of basketball. At least they were called travels, coming off of the pivot foot, taking an extra step. You have people, stopping on 2 feet and then being able to hop to the right or left and then go off 1 foot and shoot a shot. Like, this looks really stupid to me. And, unfortunately, some of this they do allow in the NBA today. I'm worried, and I know that you're thinking of this as well, that when you play the eras rosters, every now and then you're going to see some of these animations or be able to execute them, when in those eras there was no chance that it would be executed or allowed to be executed. So they did add like new step-through animations. They appear to have utilized Pro Play a little bit more this year on certain animations related to like Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant. Saw some new shooting animations and whatnot, and overall they look okay. But when you look at the movement around the Pro Play animation, it's just same old, pretty much since 2K20. And that's one of the reasons why I just don't think that you're going to play this game, because you've absolutely hated the movement for the most part. The herky-jerkiness of it, the poor foot planning, the hitting invisible walls, getting sucked sideways into players, all of that stuff. And I just see so much of that in all of this early gameplay footage. They showed 2K27 smooth gameplay, and it's Jason Tatum kind of, doing some step backs and doing some dribbles and driving to the lane, and his signature shot looks really good. Some of the step backs look pretty good, but again, the overall movement around it, whenever he tries to like take a corner or whenever he tries to change directions, all of that stuff, or when he's driving and then you can kind of see him get like attached to his defender, that stuff still looks overall poor. Like, I can tell that's probably not going to feel great on the sticks. And I will admit if I'm wrong when I get the game and start playing it. But, they show a bunch of SGA gameplay footage as well. They show Giannis dominating and kind of just like pushing through defenders and getting to the hoop. Kind of reminded me a little bit of NBA 2K19, to be honest with you. Giannis is incredibly dominant in that game. He's the cover athlete for that game. But yeah, I look at this gameplay and I look at the graphics. I look at the player body models. I look at all the animations that I'm seeing, and it's just a lot of the same old, same old. What are your thoughts on the gameplay footage that you've seen?
Well, we've certainly seen what the meta is this year, haven't we? The step-throughs, all of those moves are going to be spammed online. I can see that already. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I, too, will reserve final judgment until I actually get my hands on the game. You can't tell exactly how it feels until you do so. However, it does look so similar, so familiar, that, as you said, we can basically make an educated guess that is going to feel very similar, if not the same. I'm still seeing that floaty movement that's bothered me in recent years, so it's probably not going to feel very different on the sticks. Looking at the meters, because they are playing with the meters on, I'm seeing a fairly big window. That's always my concern when there's green or miss, that the green window is going to be taken away or going to be made impossible when there's any kind of defensive coverage. Again, very hard to gauge when you're not the one on the sticks, but I am seeing a fairly big window. It might work, okay. Doesn't mean I like it, especially the dunk meter. I still think it could be disastrous. It may be something that gets patched, and of course people will say, oh, people are whining about it, and they've capitulated to it. Look, they've capitulated too much to the online crowd, and the get-good crowd, and the skill-based crowd, Derek. It's just taken away so much from the sim gameplay. So if they actually give us something back here, and at least give us the option in offline play to change the timing or remove timing on dunks and layups, etc., that shouldn't bother anyone playing online. Have your skill-based mechanics, such as they are, filling a meter, for the competitive scene. Again, the so-called competitive scene, as we've said before, Derek. But allow that online, whatever. Offline, give us the option. And we'll see if it gets patched in post-release, obviously. But yeah, as far as the gameplay is concerned, nothing is impressing me. Nothing looks particularly new. Doesn't look particularly improved to me. Nothing that jumps out and says, this is going to feel different on the sticks. You're going to enjoy this more. Throw in the dunk meters and everything else that I don't like. And yeah, it's certainly not filling me with optimism. But yeah, like I said, nothing I've seen has moved the needle for me.
Yeah, green or miss is apparently a big thing again this year.
Wonderful.
And it's all greener. It's all green or miss, even on layups, right? So it's just shooting. And Mike Wong also announced that it's also for layups. So yeah, good luck with that. I think it's stupid. Overall, I don't think that that's what people want. I don't care if you're talking about the online scene or the offline scene. I think the majority of people do not want this. And I think it makes for some pretty damn unrealistic basketball. There's other things that have been highlighted for this game. They talked about quick stopping. So they're like, quick stopping is back in 2K27. And basically what that is making it so like you're running forward and, with the ball, and you can come to a quick stop and shoot it. Apparently there's a term for this, Andrew, called quick stopping. And how is that different than what I can already do in games like NBA 2K16 and 2K15 and 2K14 that has better foot planning, right? I can just come to a stop like I would be able to in real life and foot plant and shoot my shot. But yeah, they're acting like that's somehow a new feature, and you have to like hold down a trigger to do it and whatnot. I just don't see how that's different than something that we've had already in the past. They also discussed an improved contest system, which is supposed to be more realistic. They talk about improving the contest system every year, and every year it's just basically a miss because it doesn't operate realistically. I know I'm sounding negative right now, but just the fact that the contest system has been so poor and unrealistic to combine with the shooting system since 2K20 that the mid-range game and the post game overall basically doesn't exist, right? And just overall, the contest system doesn't work realistically.
And look, I'm sure the reason they're doing courtside reports, the developer blogs, as videos this year is just taking advantage of the medium. More people like to watch videos these days than read blogs, articles, whatever. But part of me wonders if it's to make it harder to compare to previous years. Because like you said, how many times have we heard this over the years? Every year, the contest system has been reworked. AI has been reworked to be smarter on defense, or offense, for that matter. You go back and look at the developer blogs, the courtside reports, whatever you want to call them, and you can see the same words, the same phrases, year after year, the same terminology, the same promises, the same broken promises, year after year. I did a whole video about that a few years back, comparing 2K18 and 2K19, and you can do that more recently as well. And we're going to make it more skill-based this year. That's another big one, Derek. You just see these phrases being used, these buzzwords used over and over again, and maybe it's a bit harder to compare in video form. Once again, you do it in video form, you can show off what you're talking about a lot easier, and people do like to watch videos these days, or listen to videos at the very least, rather than read a lengthy blog, a lengthy article. But part of me, the cynical part of me, Derek, does wonder if the videos are making it a bit harder to make those comparisons. But we notice.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to notice at this point. We also got people that are paying for VC on a payment plan, Andrew, via the 2K HQ app. So we had an influencer state, got my VC ready on Afterpay for the 2K HQ app, ready to spend $18.74 in 4 payments to pay for my first build. What are we doing, Andrew? Going on a payment plan to pay for VC? What has happened to the basketball gaming world? What's happened to the sports gaming world? What's happened to the gaming world, right? When we have people paying through an app to, upgrade their in-game character, which, by the way, he's going to lose in 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to lose this character in 2 years when the servers go down. He's going to lose all the money he put into this character, any money that he put into my team. Like, what are we doing? Absolutely ridiculous.
And going back to what I said before, this is another situation where back in the day, if we said something about the game and it didn't live up to people's expectations, we thought it was pretty good, but you can't speak for everybody in the community, obviously. And somebody played the game, NBA Live back in the day, because that was the community events that I attended, and said, oh, you guys lied about this. It's not as good as you said. And we'd be held accountable for that, even if we were honest in our opinions. And now you've got content creators telling their audience to indulge in microtransactions, to give money to 2K, to support this predatory system.
Yeah, they're promoting it.
It's ridiculous.
They have
disgusting.
An audience,
yeah.
and people are in the comments being like, "Are you kidding me? What are you doing?"
Oh, I'm glad to see that.
This is ridiculous. Why are you shilling for this company, and why are you paying all this money? And this is why we're in the state we're in the position we're in with video games. And I always wonder who's asking these people to do this. Like, I don't think he went on there by himself and stated, hey, I'm paying for my build monthly. Who would go out there and want to admit that?
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm on a payment plan for VC. I want to know who's in his ear telling him to do that. Because that is mind-boggling to me. And just some of the stuff that I'm seeing and all the scripted BS that I'm seeing on social media and all these things that these people are doing, I have to question who's in these people's ears, because this is ridiculous. I also want to point out that there was an advertisement, and I didn't know this was a thing until now, and I probably should have known, but there's a thing called @2K Service Plug. And the post on social media was, excited to announce I'm officially partnering with @2K Service Plug to offer my own services to the 2K community. You can now book me for one-on-one pro lessons and coaching, film review and game knowledge, custom build creation, and learn directly from a proven comp player. If you're looking to improve your game or want a build made by someone who knows what works at the highest level, the build guru himself, tap in. Book me with through Service Plug at NBA 2K27. Again, what are we doing? So there's going to be people out there that are going to pay either on a plan or a one-time fee to have somebody teach them how to play a video game. They're going to pay somebody to help them make a custom build for a video game. They're going to pay for one-on-one pro lessons and coaching for a basketball video game. Again, what are we doing?
You know, Derek, this Wednesday marks 25 years that I've been running the NLSC. 25 years running a basketball video game website. So I'm pretty nerdy about this stuff, right? I'm pretty dedicated to basketball gaming. And having said that, I will say this. That is the saddest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, that feels predatory to me as well. Once again, going back to the old days of YouTube tutorials and all the great videos that Dazar made about play calling, how to run plays, all that advice freely given, and all the other content creators who have made videos, the best jump shot, the best animations, the best builds, that has been problematic as well, and that has also pushed microtransactions. Oh, you're going to make this build. This is the new OP meta build, whatever. There are problems there. But when you're giving that advice freely, and when you're trying to help people enjoy the game like that, I still respect that effort to help your fellow basketball gamers get more out of the game, to get better at the game. But paying for coaching,
charging for it, yeah. Do they refund them the fees when the servers go offline? Yeah. All the stuff that you just paid for. Yeah, you know what? It doesn't matter in 2 years, right? You're going to lose everything. You're not even going to be able to use this build that you paid for, etc. Like, do they get a refund? This whole thing sounds predatory. I hate to use that word, right? It's aggressive, but the whole thing stinks.
Apt. That's the thing. It's apt to me. Now. Yeah.
Yeah, it stinks, and I don't think it's fair. I think it's unfair to even put this out there for vulnerable people to see. I think you would agree. And when I say vulnerable people, I mean people that, maybe people that have a gambling addiction, or maybe people out there that are younger, right, and easily influenced. So maybe bullied, teenagers and whatnot, or college students and whatnot. So, like, I hate this. I hate this, and I hate the payment plan thing. It's also worth noting that people have done some research on this, stated, and I don't know if this percentage is accurate, but they did give an example. So NBA 2K27 builds could cost around 23% more VC than NBA 2K26. So somebody provided an example of a 77 to an 81 mid-range attribute upgrade costing 5,011 VC on 2K26 and 6,245 VC on 2K27. And that's where they get you, Andrew. The VC prices, to get your VC bundle, those are the same as NBA 2K26. I believe they're exactly the same. So, like the price if you want to get 100K VC, right? Or 75K or 50K or whatever. But the way they get you is things cost more in game with that same VC, right? So you end up having to buy more at the end of the day because it costs more to upgrade. So, yeah, another thing that stinks to me.
Inflation, bro. That's what they told me a few years back. Some people tried to tell me that on X when I wrote that article, The Rising Cost of My Career. And you can see that over the years, that the prices stay the same, but the in-game value of VC is definitely worse and definitely moving in an anti-consumer direction. Agent 00 saw that article, did a bit of a deeper dive into that, and proved my findings correct, right down to the numbers, basically showing that the in-game earnings went down, the in-game prices of upgrades and cosmetics, etc., went up. So it is definitely a thing. And inflation, just a ridiculous defense, such as it is, of that approach. Anti-consumer is what we call it, and rightfully so. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And we were talking about it off-air before we started recording, that it really feels like gaming is in a miserable place in 2026. And of course, it's been building up to this point, as you noted, but it really feels very cynical. You might say that we're being cynical, but the whole scene seems very cynical right now. I know indie gaming is doing some great things, and that's cool to see. We would like to see some more indie basketball games to that point. But gaming in 2026, yeah, all this predatory stuff, the lack of innovation, it just feels really...
the games aren't being made as well either, right?
It just feels miserable.
That's the thing is
absolutely.
Even outside of the predatory practices, the games are not being received as well.
Yeah.
From a gameplay perspective, from a depth perspective, from an innovation perspective. If you take a look, there are a lot of great games still being made out there, games that get overwhelmingly positive reviews. Yeah. But there's also more bad games, right? And less options. in certain spaces. For example, the basketball gaming space, the baseball gaming space, the football gaming space, the soccer gaming space. There's less options than ever. That is not positive evolution, Andrew, right? That's going backwards. That's regressing, et cetera. So it's very important to note. And yeah, we were talking before the call, and yeah, especially in sports gaming, it's a bummer right now.
And it's a shame because we do genuinely love this genre, these games. We want to enjoy NBA 2K. We don't want to get on this podcast and be cynical about it. But unfortunately, we work the material that we're given, the news, the details that we're given. And we can see these patterns. Like I said, you go back and you compare the developer blogs. You can see the buzzwords, the repetitive phrasing, the promises that have been broken. So yeah, we're not cynical just to be cynical, just to be negative. This is our honest reaction to the games, not just NBA 2K, but certainly NBA 2K, since that is the game that we're covering, going in a bad direction. Or what we feel is a bad direction anyway. And I would certainly argue that it is a bad direction when it comes to the predatory practices, but also when you look at what they're doing with the gameplay, catering to a certain crowd that wants it to be supposedly skill-based, competitive, etc. Everything's about being the best at the game. That's the only way to enjoy it. Certainly, competition is important. This is a basketball video game. Competition is baked in, but it should also be realistic. It's a sim game. It should be replicating the NBA, real basketball. It should be appealing to sim heads. And like you said before, it's not just the hardcore sim heads. Even the more casual players are getting alienated by these approaches, but it's just so disappointing to see. And it's not just NBA 2K. That is what we're focusing on because we are a basketball video game website and basketball video game podcast. But yeah, gaming in 2026 does feel, sadly, miserable.
I had to bring this up before I get to this week's responses to this week's community question. And I wanted to get a live reaction from Andrew. I'm going to read Ronnie 2K's tweet out loud here on the podcast. He stated, "Building builds on the go is so sick. We want to be on your brain all day and all night, like the baddie we are." What is your reaction to that tweet?
Well, I don't want to trigger anybody's phobia by making vomiting noises, but if you want to imagine that, Derek, that's basically my reaction to that. What is that? What is that post, really? Come on.
This guy kills me, and not in a good way. I want to point out that building builds is one of the biggest problems with the series right now because of the way it's constructed, because it's making people spend countless dollars on this game. And we talked about it before. If somebody's not happy with their build, they have to start a new build, and any money they put in the game doesn't go towards that new build, right? They got to start from scratch. So they got to put new money into the game. And anytime I see a tweet like this, even if it isn't as cringeworthy, where a word like baddie is used. Ronnie's in his 40s, right? And he's talking like a teenager here, whatever. But
no cap.
Fire. But it's the point of it's pushing people to a system that is very anti-consumer, in my opinion. And any tweet that does that rubs me the wrong way. And yeah, I hope people don't spend too much of their hard-earned money on this game because, from what I can tell, it's designed to make them do that.
The most hated man in gaming, or basketball gaming, whatever that was, leaning into the whole heel persona, the professional wrestling heel. Here's the problem. People actually pay to see heels. Who's paying to see Ronnie 2K?
Yeah, but that's not the point of the reason that bothers me, Andrew, is because he's wearing that like a badge, but the reason why he gets crap is because people are not happy with aspects of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And he's one of the faces of the game. Trust me, Mike Wong gets a lot of negative comments on his tweets too. So does Chris Manning at times if the person doesn't like what's being talked about or posted. I saw Scott O'Gallagher getting a ton of crap about college football 27 when that whole microtransaction piece came out before they backed off of it. He was getting a ton of crap from it, and he's a very, very likable guy. Right.
And that wouldn't have been his call. That wouldn't have been his call.
Comments either, yeah. Positive. Yeah. And there's usually positive comments around him all the time. But people were not happy with something about the game. So wearing it like a badge that people are upset about, like practices in your game and, gameplay regression and, certain things about modes and all of that stuff. What a ridiculous thing. Like, I hate all of it. Like, it's stupid.
No, absolutely ridiculous that he has become a celebrity, almost like a pro wrestling heel out of this. Before we get to the community question, a couple of the notes from the Courtside Reports. They're bringing in the eras for my career. Pretty cool idea. Probably enjoy that if I enjoy the gameplay more. I will never say that 2K is not doing some cool things in that regard. Also bringing in My NBA Legacy, which is basically like the old creating a legend, and some enhancements to My NBA with the management, being able to offer extensions, contracts to upcoming free agents before actually negotiating with them. So some cool information coming out there. But like we said before, gameplay is paramount. And if you don't enjoy the on-court experience, the other stuff, although it's great that it's in the game, glad to see it, it just doesn't really mean anything if you can't get on the court and enjoy the virtual basketball.
Yeah, gameplay is paramount, and being fair to the consumer is vital, especially if you want your game to be received and reviewed well and comments to be overall positive. And I just don't see that being the case in most sports games, at least AAA sports games today. So let's get to this week's community responses to this week's question. I stated as it relates to NBA 2K27, what are your thoughts on the gameplay footage you have seen? Diaby's 2K mod at Diaby's 2K states it needs to improve its visual aspect. They need a better art director. And yeah, I mean, he is very fond of NBA 2K14. The lighting, the reflections, the jersey textures, the detail, all of that. And yeah, there's a lot of people that have pointed out, we talked about this as it relates to the trailer that was shown and the early gameplay footage, but there's a lot of people that have pointed out that they're not innovating from a graphics perspective anymore, and that the games have just all kind of run together and look the same for the most part, for the last 7 years or so. And people were expecting better at this point. So was I. Right. I've been playing NBA 2K15 a lot lately. And, as far as it relates to body models and a lot of the faces and just the jersey movement and textures and all of that stuff. Yeah. I didn't expect games, from 2014, 13, 2015, et cetera, to look better in so many ways than what we're getting on new consoles here, over a decade later. So I see where he's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously graphics have come a long way. It's not like making a jump from PS1 to PS2 or PS3 to PS4. We understand that the jump is a little bit smaller because we hit pretty good graphics last generation, but it still feels stale, to his point and yours. A lot of people saying 2K14 still the best looking game in the series. Valid argument, honestly. So yeah, totally get it.
Stasho Bro at Nate Stasho, Live 01 legend, friend of the show, states the gameplay looks great and I like how every play isn't a highlight and just normal game animations. I actually have money set aside for a new game and I'm tempted to buy 2K27 mainly for the 2000 era's teams and solo franchise play. And yeah, that's where their strength is, right? It's the amount of content that they have in the game. It's the depth. It's the fact that, my brothers and I, as long as the gameplay is tolerable, we'll put a couple 100 hours into this game using legends, right, against the CPU, making great highlights, playing our WNBA draft season, possibly looking to edit, which is going to need a lot of them, but, edit and mod like an early 2000s era roster, etc. So that's where their strength is. It's that depth.
For sure. But as you just noted, you do have to edit those rosters because, as we've talked about so many times, because it continues to be an issue, there are so many problems, so many inaccuracies in those rosters. And this is going to be a problem with the era's My Career. It's great in theory, but you're not going to be able to edit the rosters, I presume, for those modes. So you're going to be stuck with all of those inaccuracies. And yes, you're going to have something really cool in so much as you get to go back to 1984, come into the league at the same time as Michael Jordan, and all the trades and player movement are going to happen as they happen in real life. Very cool. Although we've seen how some of the inaccuracies in My NBA eras already, with some of the branding changes not being accurate, I don't trust all of that to be accurate, but still very cool in theory, if not perfect in execution. But if nothing else, you're going to have those tendencies and those ratings, those animations. If they're incorrect, it does take away from the experience, as we've talked about before. And yes, you can edit that for my NBA eras, which is great. A lot of work, but it can be done. But for my career, probably not. We certainly haven't been able to use custom rosters in my career for a couple of generations now. So it is going to take away from that mode, unfortunately. But that being said, I am glad to hear that Nate is looking forward to the game. Even if I don't enjoy it, I hope other people do.
Yeah, and I've talked about it before. You can't edit those players in my team, like their signatures and whatnot. So all of those retro players that have all those inaccuracies in the My NBA Eras rosters where their signatures aren't even close to their real life counterpart. They're slow. They're sluggish. Their dribble package isn't right. All of that stuff. Well, you know what? You open those packs, you even, put more money into the game to be able to open more packs and get more players. You get those players on the floor. Well, you're stuck with what you get, and they're going to be inaccurate and not play the right way. So yeah, there's a snowball effect. T Gentry at Bucky_T states, there's a few aspects that I think looks good in 2K27, but still sliding, invisible walls, and hands going through balls on steal attempts, etc. Ultimately, in terms of gameplay, I just got to get my hands on it to make my final opinion, but I do like the up and under shots, the layup engine, etc. So yeah, pointing out the sliding that we've talked about, the poor foot planting, invisible walls, and hands going through balls on steal attempts. I've also seen it noted and shown in slow motion, a few different plays of the offensive player going through the body of the defender to score. Like literally their body going through the defender. And my brother and I were talking about this. I think it was like last year at some point. One thing that we expected on PS5 gen was that the detection would be more realistic, right? Like body to body and like hand to ball. And there wouldn't be as much like arms going through bodies, hand going through the ball, etc. And yeah, it's actually the opposite. I think it's worse actually on these most recent 2Ks than I've seen it on a few of the different PS4 gen 2Ks. So yeah, bodies still going through bodies, hands still going through the ball, detection system not that great.
And it's why we have low expectations, seeing these legacy issues. Yeah, it sounds like Bucky T is also setting his expectations low, which is the smart way to go, in my opinion. That being said, also sounds like he's keeping an open mind, going to get the game, give it a fair chance, which I also think is the right approach.
Even at the Live King states, a lot of the community members can't play 5v5, LOL. I think the movement and animation quality looks better this year. One of my biggest complaints was the collision system last year, and it may be fixed. I don't think there will be a huge difference from this year to last year. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much of a difference either. I think it's going to feel mostly the same on the sticks. That's just my opinion. I don't see an improvement in the collision system, but I do hope that I'm wrong. And he is correct. He states a lot of the community members can't play 5v5. You watch some of the gameplay footage from Community Day, and this has been the way it's been for years. It's rough, right? And you can tell when somebody doesn't really know how to play 5-on-5 basketball or use players like their real life counterparts. And a lot of times it's painfully obvious when you watch the Community Day people or other influencers show that footage.
And that's why, even when we weren't feeling as cynical about the games, even when we were enjoying the games more and how they felt on the sticks, enjoying them year to year, we still didn't put a lot of stock into gameplay footage like this, because it does come down to the person on the sticks. Look how many compliments you get, Derek, about your gameplay footage. People will give you compliments on how you're making the game look really good, because you know how to play these games. You also know real basketball as well. Conversely, even with great games, they can be made to look really bad if the person on the sticks isn't competent. So yeah, only so much you can glean from somebody else's gameplay, but again, a lot of legacy issues.
Yeah, the game engine, the mechanics don't help, right? MP3 Gaming at MP3_gaming states, maybe it's just me, but there looks to be a lack of defense on drives. And yeah, I saw a lot of easy bullies and a lot of like going through the body of the defender. Snake at Snake 2022 states, I still can't believe that no one has a broadcast camera angle yet. Wow, I can't tell nothing from this online angle. And what he's talking about is that overhead 2K view. I didn't see any broadcast gameplay at all from Community Day or from anybody else. So that's unfortunate, but yeah, I'll be playing on broadcast. He also states the gameplay looks like they're watching the modded animations from 2K26 users. Looks easier to score, way too much distance between the players. People complain that it's too easy to score. Just watch. So if the online community complains that it's too easy to score, you will see probably a patch for the game. At least that's what history tells me. And in the online scene, gonna be honest with you, most of the time it does look too easy to score because you have humans on the sticks, and it's very hard to move side to side in these 2K games because of all of the sliding and whatnot, and because oftentimes side to side movement is a lot slower than the ball handler's movement, and they can just kind of get around you and score. The problem is, Andrew, is that when those patches take place online, they affect offline play, right?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before. And so if offline play is playing tolerable, like there's some positive aspects to it, and then a patch goes through online to try to fix something that the online crowd is complaining about, even if it's a small number of people, but they're loud and they're complaining about it, yeah, it could negatively impact the offline modes.
And that's how we get nerf steals. That's how we get shot contests that don't work properly when facing a CPU opponent, because CPU opponents can stick to you like glue. They can get into your airspace much more frequently than a human user. They have those superhuman reactions. They don't have human error. That's something that the games don't really replicate very well, and gameplay that is tuned for the online arena also ends up affecting offline play, the sim gameplay. And people can say, who plays against bots? A lot of people play offline. A lot of people like to play My Career. A lot of people like to play My Team, My NBA Eras, etc.
Millions. Look at the amount of people that download the rosters.
Exactly.
That's all you need to do to know how many people are on the sticks. And not everybody downloads rosters either. There's a lot of people that just jump into Play Now and that's their fix, right? Or they just use the default roster. But if you take a look, you have hundreds of thousands of downloads of custom rosters. That lets you know that millions of people play offline modes.
Exactly, and it's a perfectly viable way to play, a perfectly acceptable way to play this sim basketball game. And we've been here for years, Derek, so it's not like we're coming into their online game and saying, hey, make this better for offline gamers. The online scene is much newer than the offline scene. NBA 2K found its success by being a more authentic game than NBA Live and leaving it in the dust. Obviously mechanically better, obviously more innovation with modes, features, content, whatever. But NBA 2K is as successful as it is, put NBA Live out of business, if you will, because it was the more authentic NBA sim. I'm sorry, the offline crowd, we were here first. Absolutely there should be an online scene. Absolutely the game should cater to both of us. But quite frankly, for years now, it's been catering almost exclusively to the wants, the needs of the online scene, and the sim gameplay has suffered for it.
DZY Games at Just DZY Games states very intriguing, looks to be the best year of pro play yet. Ultimately will come down to if you are a fan of pro play or not. I personally am. And I didn't have a problem with pro play. In fact, I complimented it in a big way for the use of it on NBA 2K25. Unfortunately, they cut back on it on 2K26. I don't think that pro play is the problem here. I don't think authentic animations is the problem here. It's all of the other issues with the game's engine, the issues related to suction, the reliance on artificial boosts, which causes a lot of canned animations, the constant skating, the herky-jerky movement, the fact that you can't even spin around with your player without your player jerking back and forth and looking awkward. So I don't think that pro play is the problem here. And I don't think that it's necessarily just not working well with the other tech. In fact, the problem is that pro play looks pretty damn smooth when it plays, and the rest of the tech looks poor, right? Overall, it just doesn't feel great on the sticks. So yeah, I'm excited for pro play editions as well. I don't think that's what's negatively affecting the gameplay.
Yeah, I agree. I think pro play has a lot of potential. I think it's been used fairly well, has resulted in some pretty awesome animations. It's everything else in between the pro play animations, the transitional animations, the overall motion system, that feeling of running in mud, or the floatiness of the player movement, that input delay, things like that. Pro play is fine. In fact, I would say it's great and has a lot of potential, but there's problems with the tech elsewhere.
And the last response on X is from Justin Francis, at Justin Francis 7. He states, I've seen some new block animations that I enjoyed. Step-throughs look cheesable, but a nice wrinkle and shot variety. Finally, he states, Mike Wong says offline plays a little slower than 26, so I hope that means it's closer to the feel of 25 in that respect and has fewer artificially sped up finishes. So I like the pace of 25 more. I actually like 2K25 overall more than 2K26. I feel like there was more freedom on the sticks. I feel like you had more control. And I like the integration of pro play on 25. So I agree in that aspect. I do hope that if it plays more like one or the other, 2K26 or 2K25, I hope it plays a little bit more like 25.
Yeah, speaking more objectively, making it more like 25 does sound like the better way to go, from how much you enjoyed it, how much other people in the community enjoyed it. From my perspective, I didn't really enjoy 2K25 that much either, so being more like 2K25 may make it better. Maybe I will enjoy 2K27 a bit more as a result. We will see. Once again, I will certainly give it a fair chance. But yeah, for me, being more like 2K25 is kind of neither here nor there.
Did we receive any other responses on Facebook?
We did have a couple of people weigh in on Facebook this week. Clemens says, not much different than 2K26, which is kind of what we observed, Derek. And Charles says, I like what I'm seeing. Can't wait to get my hands on it. So yeah, some people definitely liking what they're seeing. There is some positivity. I don't necessarily share it, but I am glad there are people looking forward to the game. Ideally, that's what we want.
I hope they love it, right? I hope they create memories with it and have a blast. So fingers crossed.
Jade says, where's the Tony Allen clampdown defense? Where's the chaotic energy? Everything's too fake. And Joseph replies to that comment, says, facts. They are leaning into a more simplified brand of basketball these days, just like the real NBA. They are devolving. Most of the clips are ISO-driven plays. I think that's a fair assessment, Derek.
Yeah, I hate to use this word, but I really don't know how else to point it out. I do think that the games have gotten more cartoony, right, as far as like the way the players move. I think they've moved away from realism as it relates to the way the players move, the way they interact with each other on the court, all of that stuff. So I see where he's coming from. And unfortunately, that's kind of the direction that they've stuck with since 2K20. And also a lot of that was in 2K18 as well.
And we've seen those comments on social media, have we not, saying, oh, who cares about realism? It's a video game. And imagine saying that back in the day, like NBA 2K6, NBA 2K7, saying, oh, who cares about it becoming more realistic? It's a video game. You know what people would say, Derek? They'd say, well, if that's how you feel, go play NBA Jam, go play NBA Street. Because
it's not about, I agree. Listen, I agree. Okay. I agree about the realism piece, right? Like, obviously we want our basketball sim to play like basketball,
to be
right?
sim, yeah.
It's a basketball video game, but it's not even about the sim or realism point at the end of the day. It's about control, right? It's about being able to do basketball things and have control over the basketball things that you do, right? And for that control to make sense and for us to have, at the end of the day, the control over the outcome. Right. And we've gone away from that, in my opinion. It's not all about, hardcore gamer or hardcore sim or realism. I'm talking about for people that just casually want to pick up the sticks too. Right. It's about that control and for the basketball basics to be accurate in that person's hands. Right. And I think we've gone far away from that.
Absolutely. And accessibility, as we've said before.
Exactly.
And Joseph also continues with his own comment, says, 2K should be ashamed of themselves for advertising this like it's a good move in the right direction. Everything they showcased is one-on-one, ISO-heavy basketball. They did not show any improvements to the full spectrum of gameplay, no cutting, weaving, off-ball moves, no overhaul to the low post offense and defense, and most likely because there are none. The real game of basketball and this game are in a race to the bottom. They want to hard-earned money, but advertising, everybody clear out, I got him plays, layup packages, and sloppy sidestep jump shots. And folks are excited for this? I will keep NBA 2K25. I spent too much time overhauling all the sliders, systems, and tendencies so the game can play a way smarter and more traditional style of basketball that challenges me. And yeah, to his point, having to make the edits to the rosters and sliders to get that experience, fortunately you can in certain modes, not my team, not my career, not online, obviously. So yeah, Joseph, I am glad to hear that you have been able to edit the sliders, edit the rosters, to have a more positive experience. I know that you and your brothers have done that as well, Derek. But once again, everything he says, yeah, I absolutely agree. And also his point about the real game, I'll throw that in there. I agree with that too.
So I edit sliders every year. I adjust game speed. I cater that experience to me and my brothers, right? And I've been able to make games more tolerable when without those edits, it wasn't even playable for us, right? So I love that customization aspect. But the default game engine needs to be strong, right? You should be able to put that game on and be able to have a positive experience without editing anything. Why? Because how many modes, Andrew, have no slider tweak options, right? My career, my team, etc. You can't even edit sliders. There's no slider options there. So you're stuck with the gameplay the engine gives you. And that is a big problem because people spend hundreds of hours on those modes and oftentimes hundreds of dollars, right, on those modes. So yeah, I think editing options are great. I think slider tweak options are amazing. I use them all the time, but the games need to be strong by default, out of the box with no edits, and I don't think they are.
So thank you to everybody who weighed in on this week's community question. Some people are looking forward to the game, Derek. A lot of people, like us, feeling a bit cynical, certainly skeptical about the game. And again, I do hope that people enjoy the game. I'm not optimistic that I will, because it's shaping up to be very similar to games that I didn't. That being said, I will absolutely try to keep an open mind. I will give NBA 2K27 a fair chance, but from everything I've heard, from everything I've seen, my expectations, I'm keeping them pretty low.
Yeah, same here. As long as the gameplay is tolerable, I will put time into it. And I will try to upload gameplay on day one of the game's release. And so that would be Wednesday the 26th, in hopes of giving people a pretty good look at it.
And of course, we'll be back next week with our first impressions of NBA 2K27. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. Thank you for tuning in. And reminder, you can catch us every week on the NLSC, our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. Also, both we and the NLSC are on social media, and would appreciate a follow. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
Yeah, you can reach me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. I'm also on the NLSC, D43, and on YouTube, D43.
As for me, I'm Andrew in the forum, and Andrew NLSC on X and Blue Sky. The NLSC is on X, Facebook, and Blue Sky at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at NBA Live Series Center. And of course, give a look to the NLSC itself, nba-live.com, for all things basketball gaming. So, thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone!